Hello, everybody. My name is Ivo Boneca. I'm one of the co-directors of this MOOC, Microbes and Brain.
I'm Grégoire Chevalier, the other co-director of this MOOC.
And first of all, we would like to thank you all, those who participated to this MOOC and have followed it every week. And I hope you enjoyed the MOOC we put together and all the participants and their presentations, and that you've learned as much as possible. And for this last Hangout, we have a couple of questions from the discussion forum that have been sent by participants who were trying to answer.
Don't hesitate to ask questions.
Yeah, exactly. And
you can put the screen so they can ask the question. Yeah.
Perfect. Here we go. And so and while we wait for questions from the participants, live participants, we have 3 questions from the forum for the last week, the week 5 of the MOOC. So the first one is on the presentation from Damien Hay about stress and the impact of microbiota on the stress behavior and how that can be transmitted to mice that have never been confronted to a stress and how that is transmitted by the microbiota. And the question was whether there were any microorganisms that are a biomarker of a stressed microbiota, so a microbiota associated with a stressed individual.
That's a pretty tricky question, because so far in the community, in the scientific community, we consider that there are not one dysbiotic microbiota. There are several dysbiotic microbiota. Each dysbiotic microbiota is dysbiotic in its own way. Nevertheless, we try to find common features and common microorganisms. Some papers showed that, for example, in the microbiota of stress mice, there were less lactobacilli.
Mm-hmm. So part of the firmicutes. But there's not enough evidence to say that there's one typical stressed microbiota. The second question was related with autism and microbiota. So whether there are correlations between the development of autism in kids and the type of microbiota, either of the kids or the mother. So there's more and more evidence that there are correlations, and particularly during pregnancy, and how the microbiota can influence the brain development of the fetus during pregnancy, and how that can be related with autistic syndromes. So we can't clearly say that it's responsible for autism, because most of the data comes from animal models like the mouse. And in animal models, you can only talk about autistic syndromes. You cannot talk about autism by itself, because they have common features, but you cannot clearly say it as being autism.
Typically, we talk about autism-like behavior in mice, since you look, for example, at social interactions between mice, being social animals. Some mice are considered having autistic-like behavior if they don't communicate or don't interact with the other mice in the cage.
And so in this case, it seems that indeed the type of microbiota and during pregnancy period can influence the development of the brain of the fetus and induce autistic-like syndromes in the fetus once the fetus is born, so the embryo, and there's a pup, and will translate into autistic syndromes in the pups. And usually that's, at least from the last data that has been published, is associated with a mimicking of an infection, a viral infection, so inflammation, and the presence in the gut microbiota of a particular group of bacteria that are called segmented filamentous bacteria that induce a Th17 response that in that case will be deleterious, because it will induce rearrangements in the brain that are responsible for the autistic behavior. Whether that can be translated to humans is still a big question, but at least in mouse models, it seems to be correlated in this particular model.
There are several also clinical data that are available regarding the microbiota of autistic kids, for example. And some found differences between autistic kids and control kids, but some did not. So it's pretty tough nowadays to really say that. Some speaking, for example, for an increased level of Clostridium or Proteobacteria in autistic kids, we do not know for sure that there is a clear fingerprint in the microbiome of autistic kids. Nevertheless, as Ivo mentioned, there might be an influence of the microbiota very early in life.
Mm-hmm. So there's also another study where they showed that mimicking again, but this time bacterial infections in pregnant mice also had an impact on the brain development and overstimulation of neuron proliferation, which had as a consequence behavioral problems with the mice. So there are different studies trying to relate events that might, particular events that might happen during pregnancy that will have an impact on the behavior of the mice, of the pups, which are closely related to autistic syndrome. But in humans, there's still a missing link that needs to be proven. And so the last question that we got is about the presentation on brain development and Drosophila, and the fact that the microbiota impacts on larval growth. And the question was whether bacteria that stimulate or larval growth also impact on the lifespan of the Drosophila, of the fly. And indeed, that is the case. So those bacteria, like Lactobacillus plantarum, that stimulate the growth of the larva also have an impact in the lifespan. And those flies that carry Lactobacillus plantarum have a longer lifespan compared to germ-free mice.
So nevertheless, in this model, the flies were under special diet, which is
calorie restriction.
Calorie restriction. So it worked in this model of calorie restriction for the flies, plus the benefits of this probiotic strain.
Yeah.
It didn't work, I think, it didn't work in normal conditions.
Yeah. Okay. So we've gone through the 3 questions that we had from the forum. And if nobody else has questions for us, it was a pleasure for us to do this MOOC and to be here at the 3 Hangouts and have these interactions and be able to answer to your questions. And we hope that you will come in the future to other MOOCs from the Institut Pasteur, and they will be as interesting as ours. So if nothing else is, we're going to wrap it up and wish you all good luck for the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.